When I got into RC racing when I was around 12, 13 years old, there was very little that I knew at the time. The entire world of RC pretty much existed inside a tennis court with an HPI Sprint 2 drift. Simpler times. When I finally got into racing at my local track at the time, there was very much I still didn't know, and as a result I made many mistakes. Mistakes that I see many people make even now. That's what I want to go over in this video. What mistakes to avoid making when you get into RC racing. Before you begin, however, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and hit the like button if you liked the video. Without further delay, let's begin. Now I'm kind of breaking my own rule with this first one, but if you're just starting out, I highly recommend sticking to one specific brand, at least for a while. More specifically, a brand that is either supported at your track or is popular at your track. Here in America, that would be something like Team Associated or Losi when it comes to 10th scale, and probably Tekno when it comes to 8th scale. This is part of the reason I run Team Associated still. Parts between them are pretty much interchangeable, and this is also true with the B6 buggy as well. Even some of the new parts that came in the B6.3. You want to hear more about that? Another day. This is pretty much true through any and all brand when it comes to racing vehicles. Like I said, all the 10th scale 2-wheel drive cars from Team Associated all share the same parts. Same thing with X-Ray, Losi, Schumacher, you name it. As long as you have a fleet of cars from the same manufacturer, you should be able to share parts between them in a pinch. This standardization doesn't just extend to the car itself, it can also extend to the car's internals. Running a different ESC and motor combo in every one of your cars can be quite dumb. Having multiple brands of ESCs means you have to carry a bunch of different programming cards and memorize how to program them all. Personally, I recommend starting out with Hobbywing as they are usually the easiest to solder and work with most of the time. Though if you want to run something like Reedy or McLaren, I won't stop you. The only reason I wouldn't recommend Tekin to a beginner is because of the hassle of soldering up the wires to the ESC itself. If you don't know what you're doing, it can get messy very quickly. Speaking of electronics, this may seem like a given, but make sure you know which motors and ESCs are legal for you to run in any specific class. Now, of course, in a novice class, you can pretty much run whatever you want. A cheap plug-and-play ESC motor combo will work if you just want to go, but running something made for racing will give you a head start. First, you're going to need to know what kind of class you're running. If you're doing 10th scale racing, you're probably going to hit with either 2-wheel drive buggy, 2-wheel drive short course truck, stadium truck, and 4-wheel drive buggy. Depending on which car you have, you're going to need a different type of motor. If you're in a 2-wheel drive buggy stock class, then you're either going to be running a 21.5 turn motor or a 17.5 turn motor. For short course truck and stadium truck, you'll either be running a 17.5 turn or a 13.5 turn, and for 4-wheel drive, you'll either be running a 13.5 turn or a 10.5 turn motor. All depending on the size of the track. Also, with all of these stock classes, you'll be running no timing on the ESC, only on the motor. Now, if you have the choice between running a stock class or a mod/open class, if you're just starting out, always go for the stock class if you can. If you don't have a choice and the class you're running is open by default, don't make the mistake of overpowering both the car or yourself. For 2-wheel drive buggy, for example, if you're inexperienced or feel like you have a lead finger, anything below 13.5 turns with a bit of ESC timing will be plenty to get over most obstacles on a 10th scale track. 8th scale I'm a little bit more hazy on, but the general ideas stay the same. Yes, you can run the most powerful motor in ESC that both the rules or your wallet can allow, but you may not be able to handle it. 2000 kV is plenty for me. Now, the number one thing I see more people make mistakes on than any other is battery maintenance. Batteries are literally the life of our RC cars, and as a result, you need to take care of them. I can't tell you how many batteries I've seen puffed up only after about a few months of use and abuse. There are a few things to know when running a LiPo battery, so here are a few quick tips to know to keep your batteries healthy and working. Always balance charge your batteries, no exceptions. Never leave a fully charged battery sit for a long time. Don't leave them over time in a hot car. Don't fully discharge your battery until you're ready to throw it away. Do not disable the low voltage cutoff on your ESC, and when you're done with them, always put them in storage mode. Now, one new thing that's come up recently are high voltage batteries. I shouldn't have to state this, but make sure you do not mix up your charging modes between batteries. Never, and I mean never, charge a regular LiPo battery on high voltage mode. The results could be a bit, yeah. Now, one thing I see many people obsess over is the setup of your car. Now yes, setup is very important to how your car is going to handle, and these cars can be very sensitive to even minor adjustments. However, when I see someone spend all their time setting up their car and not driving, I get a little bit upset. Especially when it's someone who, to put it bluntly, isn't skilled enough for those setup changes to matter and would spend their time better by just getting more track time in. 90% of your setup comes from your tires anyway, so if you're a novice, simply getting the right tires and getting as many laps in as possible during practice will do much more than disassembling and reassembling your diff for the third time in a day. The best time to set up your car usually isn't even on race day. It's sometime before race day. If you know the track you're going to, which I hope that you do, look up any and all setups for that specific type of track. If it's a long, fast track with sweeping bends, look up a setup for that kind of track. Same thing if it's a tight, technical track. Doing this should get you in the general ballpark of what you need for that day, and you shouldn't have to make any drastic changes unless the track makes any drastic changes. The best time to make actual setup changes would probably be sometime before race day. Usually a practice day if you can take advantage of that, or maybe even about, say, 3 hours before the race actually starts. These are generally the best times when you actually want to make big setup changes to your car, not in between heats. Another mistake I see a lot of people making when driving is when they overdrive their car. Throwing your car way too fast into corners, not braking in time, getting on the power too early, over jumping jumps, that kind of thing. This sort of aggressive driving style usually manifests when falling behind, being from a crash, or generally just driving slowly. I'm here to tell you that where it's okay to push yourself, it's also important to know the limits of both you and your car. If you find yourself pushing way too hard or find yourself making many mistakes in a row, take a second to collect yourself by driving slowly and methodically while slowly ramping up the pace over time. This will give you time to collect yourself and reevaluate your position, and in general will help you to avoid getting tilted. Speaking of which, the last mistake I see many people make in RC is not letting themselves enjoy racing. In my short time of racing, I've seen my fair share of radios being thrown, cars being broken, and yelling matches being had. I at one point was one of those people who got angry and bent out of shape over every little thing. When I got back into RC, however, I had grown and I eventually had an epiphany. Bad marshalling, broken parts, rubbing in racing, and a plethora of other things can ruin your race day and can happen at any time. At the track you're seeing right now, I was in first place for about half a lap before I went into the wall. This little ball cup popped up and the marshal who was closest to me was unable to pop it back on. I went from first to last, or 12th, in less than a lap in the A main. If I had let that get to me, I would have just left the race, but I wanted to finish still, because I could. So I ran down, popped the ball cup back on, and placed 9th in the end. Still not fantastic, but better than not finishing. My point is, these things happen to everybody, often at the absolute worst times, and there's almost nothing you can really do about it. Nothing except grit your teeth and do it again to see if you can do better the next time. And better is exactly what I did. I managed to place second in both stadium truck and short course truck, and overall I think it was a good day. The sooner you can accept the fact that these things happen and that there's always the next race, the sooner you can truly enjoy racing for what it is: entertainment. Again, we are grown men, and sometimes women, playing with toy cars. They're supposed to be fun. It's up to us to allow them to be fun. That's all for now. If you can think of any other mistakes you might have made that you'd like to warn others about, feel free to put them in the comments below. Also, if you liked the video and haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting the big red sub button on the bottom right. I'll see you later.